Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, the 19% tariff rate positions the Philippines as one of the most competitive in trade, says the Philippines negotiating team. They justify the zero tariffs on select U.S. products aimed to ease local prices.
Yung mga pinapapasok natin na walang taripa, ay ang purpose po nun ay baba ang presyo ng bilihin sa Pilipinas.
Big business groups and foreign chambers call for bold, decisive action as the president delivers his fourth State of the Nation address on Monday. Diwa Ginugundo, former deputy governor of the Bangko Sentral, joins us for his insights. We also speak to Dino Aquino, vice president for fixed income trading at Security Bank Asset Management Group. Manila and Washington.
Ang magbabayad ng taripa na to ay ang mga Amerikano, ang mga importers, ang mga buyers ng mga produkto galing sa buong mundo. So sa huli, ang magbabayad po nito mga tarifa ay mga consumers po ng Amerika. Mga mamamayan ng Amerika na bibili ng mga produkto na inimport nila, sila po ang magbabayad nito mga taripa. Yung mga pinapapasok natin na walang taripa ay ang purpose po nun ay baba ang presyo ng bilihin sa Pilipinas.
Go said the administration did not give the U.S. full market access in the Philippines, unlike its Southeast Asian neighbors Vietnam and Indonesia. Both countries dropped
Hindi pa po tapos ang negosasyon. Our third technical working groups will continue to work with their counterparts from America to finalize the details of this arrangement. Marami pang kailangan pag-usapan.
Go and Trade Secretary Cristina Roque issued a joint statement in which the latter reiterated the concessions did not include agricultural and manufacturing industries strategic to the country's economic interests. The U.S.-Philippines
President Marcos got the best deal he could have at this time from President Trump, whose aim is not to assist the Philippines, but to have all products, as many products as possible, made in the United States. So while it was the best deal that the Philippines could have had, long term, I expect this will hurt the Philippines.
guest says no theatrics, please, in the 2026 budget as the president's State of the Nation address takes place this coming Monday, July 28th. With us now for more, former Deputy Governor of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, Diwa Ginugundo. He is currently Principal Advisor of Global Source Partners. Good to have you back, Diwa. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Kathy, and thank you for this invitation.
All right, so what sort of theatrics are you referring to?
Well, when I talk about theatrics, it means that you don't get what you see. See, the budget process starts with consolidation from the bottom up. Okay, and of course, different agencies of government would submit their respective budget. Let's call them X, Y, Z. When the DBM consolidates all of these submissions into one final budget for submission to Congress, of course, these agencies of government will no longer be able to see their original submission. There could have been changes in terms of the absolute size and even in terms of the distribution, whether in terms of more capital expenditure or current expenditure. And finally, after all the public hearings, you don't see again the consolidated numbers by DBM. And then right after the bicameral conference between the Senate and the House of Representatives, still you don't see your original submission. There's so much theatrics about the whole budget process, and you don't see what you originally submitted
You
to
don't
the
get to
Department
see what
of
you
Budget.
originally submitted. It's nothing new. But what's new here is that we're up against tariffs that we didn't expect. And you wrote that column on July 18th in the Business World. But since then, as you know, so many developments have taken place. There's the
That's
president's
right.
meeting with Trump yielding a revised tariff rate of 19%. And a number of senators, progressive groups, have raised concerns. So how are you now expecting the president will frame his fourth of the State Nation address following these developments?
Well, the impact of the tariff, okay, will also be felt on trade. It's true that it's not the Filipino people who will be paying the additional tariff, reciprocal tariff of 19% or whatever is going to be the final number. It's the U.S. consumers. However, precisely because U.S. imports, let's say from the Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries, will be higher by the reciprocal tariff, the U.S. demand for these products will actually are expected to actually decline, and that will have some issues with respect to our exports. And export receipts are basically also part of the lifeblood of the economy. So all told, we are seeing a possible impact on economic growth. And this is something that both that the IMF, even the World Bank, ADB, and the ASEAN macroeconomic, ASEAN plus 3 macroeconomic research office were already predicting a possible slowdown in the global economy.
Exactly the point that
Yeah.
I've spoken with Gary Teves and Chinito Abito earlier this week saying, we got to get our house in order, our fiscal house in order. So we go back again to the budget process that you just mentioned. If you say that the budget process is theater, then how far is the budget process from what is strategic, transparent, accountable, fair, and democratic? I believe we've lost Diwat for a moment there, so we'll get back to him soon as we reestablish connections. Deficit widened at nearly 25% in the first half of 2025 compared to last year. The 765 billion gap remains relatively within the target, according to the Treasury, as the government programmed 760 billion for the first 6 In corporate news, the Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation has extended assistance to several affected communities. MPTC has distributed relief aid, mainly sacks of rice, to several barangays in the cities of Manila and Caloocan, as well as to local governments in Bulacan, Valenzuela, and Pampanga. NLEX Corporation Assistant Vice President for Traffic Operations, Robin Ignacio, told One Balita Pilipinas, heavy rains and flooded roads pose a challenge in delivering relief goods.
Sa pag-abot nga po ng tulong, meron kaming mga hamon po sa pag-transport po minsan ng mga tako ng bigas kasi bukod sa medyo binabaha po yung mga lugar, talaga naman pong yan patuloy-tuloy pa rin po yung pag-ulan. At of course, yung ating mga coordination po dito sa mga LGU. So kinakailangan makapag-coordinate po muna bago po pumunta dun sa kanilang lugar.
And we have again former Deputy Governor of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, Diwa Ginigundo, on the line. Good to have you back, Diwa.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me pick up on what I just said there, because you made a mention of budget deficit, trade deficit, and the impact on lower growth, which leads us back to the discussion that we really have to get our fiscal house in order. So if you say that the budget process is far from being strategic, and it's all about theatrics, then how far are we from being strategic, transparent, accountable, fair, and democratic?
Well, we are quite far, Cathy, precisely because there's nothing strategic about prioritizing minor and unprogrammed infrastructure projects. How can you call, let's say, minor flood control projects strategic when we had established and funded a lot of infra projects, and yet we're still flooded. The whole budget process may not be transparent at all, precisely because in the bicameral conference, only a few members of both houses decide the final shape of the budget. And there is accountability is also problematic. For example, in the case of the 2025 budget, Congress allowed DOF to sweep GOCC funds to cover the unprogrammed appropriations. Well, we know what unprogrammed appropriations are. These are spending programs included in the budget, but put on standby and funded only when there is excess revenue available elsewhere or money is borrowed. And finally, we're far from having a fair and democratic budget process. Again, we recall PhilHealth funds sequestered even when the universal health care has been barely implemented. So it's not only not strategic, but also unfair and undemocratic. We have a long way to go, Cathy.
Okay, so when the allegations are that insertions are the new pork barrel in the bicameral budget deliberations, how do you get good governance going to stamp out the practice?
Well, I think it will start with the president. The president will have to get his people, both in House of Representatives and the Senate, to stick to the party line. And the president will speak about good governance, avoiding corruption, avoiding pork barrel projects, insertions of unnecessary election-related spending. I think we will start right, Cathy.
Well, the public is a big stakeholder. We shouldn't forget that. So how can civil society and the independent watchdogs play a meaningful role in strengthening the integrity of the budget process that you can't find right now?
Yeah, precisely. I think NGOs and even the minority group, in both houses of Congress, I think are doing their job. But in the final analysis, when the final shape of the national budget comes out from the bicameral conference, we don't get what we see at the very beginning of the whole budget process. So we also have to play our part. The civil society has to play its part. We have to make sure that we speak up when we see something is wrong or something is amiss. That's very important in a democratic society.
It is indeed a clarion call for the people of the Philippines. Thank you so much, Diwa Ginigundo, for your insights. Appreciate it. And you're watching Money Talks. We have news overseas coming right up. The violence has erupted in the border of Thailand and Cambodia, killing at least 12. And U.S. President Donald Trump and Fed Chair Jerome Powell disagree on Fed building renovation figures. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. The months-long standoff between Thailand and Cambodia erupted on Thursday, killing at least 11 civilians and a soldier. Violence broke out in the border that the two countries share, accusing one another of striking first. The Thai army accused Cambodia of firing rockets in 4 nearby provinces, while Cambodian officials claimed that Thai soldiers had opened fire on Cambodian troops. The conflict primarily occurred at the Prasat Tamwen Thom, a temple contested by both countries. Their dispute dates back to 1907, when a map created by French colonizers in Cambodia led to vague interpretations, with temples built during the Khmer Empire between the 9th and the 13th centuries at stake. In a statement, the Department of Foreign Affairs calls on both neighboring countries to resolve their dispute in a peaceful manner. The Philippines reiterated
It looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed. You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well,
including
no,
the
but
Martin building.
it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago.
more is Dino Aquino, Vice President for Fixed Income Trading at Security Bank Asset Management Group. So good to have you back here, Dino. Welcome to the
Good morning,
program.
Cathy. Thanks for having me again.
I couldn't help but laugh along with you with that head shake. That was the first time
I
I'd
was
seen
looking
it.
at the video with the publicity stunt with Trump.
But that
and
wasn't a publicity stunt. I mean, he really shot back at
yeah,
the
he
president.
did. And he's been beating up Jerome for quite some time already.
I know,
on
and
that.
when it comes just a few days before the Fed decides,
Yeah.
that means a lot.
Yeah.
Because he's now going to, well, have to decide whether he cuts or not. But do we even care at this point?
Yeah, that's the question. Do we care at this point? I watched your interview with Governor Remolona. I think it was it last month, right?
That's correct. The day after he cut rates.
He cut rates. He did mention two important things, and then it caught my attention. He said that we actually decoupled in terms of our inflation and growth, because our inflation is below target and our growth is strong, while their growth is negative. So with those two factors, it's already decoupling. And he also mentioned the possibility of 50 basis points interest rate differential, and that's at the time when the tensions with Israel and Iran were ongoing. So the fact that he mentioned those things already at a very risky time in the market is already a good sign that the BSP is already looking into decoupling from the US.
Decoupling meaning cutting a lot more.
Cutting a lot
or
more.
cutting faster.
Or
not waiting for the Fed.
tightening the interest rate differential to 50 basis points. Because right now, I think the comfort zone where the markets are looking at is around 75. So 50 is a bit, I think, tight for some market participants. But as per Governor Remolona, it's a possibility at this point.
Well, what do you think? I mean, it depends on your inflation rate forecast for June. I mean, we thought 1.4 was already the slowest it could get. But I'm getting that it could even get slower?
I'm looking at around 1.2% for this month, partly because food prices have gone down a lot the past few weeks, despite the typhoons and all. We did our recent rounds with the wet markets, and the prices of pork, vegetables, and rice have significantly gone down. So that would put the inflation rate, I think, a lot lower for this month.
So 75 basis points of a rate cut, do you think?
Our house view is one more, 25 basis points, but Governor Remolona mentioned two more, a possibility of two more. Even Secretary Recto mentioned two more. So there's that possibility, but I think 25 is a lock.
Okay, let's link up the zero tariffs.
Yeah.
The thing that Secretary Go made a mention of, zero tariffs on some U.S. products.
Yeah.
Pulling down prices of consumer goods. Presumably that would lift growth.
Yeah,
but then again, we're getting the message from Diwa Ginigundo just a couple moments ago
he
that
mentioned
it could have an effect on our trade deficit.
Yes.
And worsen and lower, slower growth.
If you look at the peso, it's quite strong this year, the performance. So there's a tendency that we'd import more than we would export given the tariffs. So that would essentially slower the growth projections for this year. So that would induce probably higher trade deficits. So that would even slower the growth. So I think that's an important thing that we can consider moving forward. So the BSP is already on top of it by already mentioning the possibility of further rate cuts.
But whatever happened to consumption-led economy? I
Yeah.
mean, exports are just
small
part
of
the full GDP.
Yeah. I think what Diwa was mentioning also was the ability of the Philippines to import more from other countries. Like, for example, China will dump all their... I think Professor Abola also mentioned this last time, that China will continue to dump their goods because it's too expensive to ship to the US. So they will dump their goods here in the Philippines. So that would also push inflation a lot lower because there's a lot of supply of goods here. Yeah.
All right, one to watch then. And what happens next week?
Yeah,
The
what
head
happens next week?
shakes.
But some dissent is already starting. If you, I think one of the Fed officials, Waller, he's been very vocal that they should cut rates this July. I don't know if he wants a Fed job, though.
Well, we have to see that.
Yeah.
Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Dino Aquino, for joining us of Security Bank Asset Wrestling legend Hulk Hogan died Thursday, July 24th, to the wrestler's family. In recent years, Hogan became an avid supporter of Trump. And on Monday, One News will have an extensive coverage of the State of the Nation address. Stay tuned to One News and One PH as we bring you updates from around and voices in our studios as President Bongbong Marcos delivers his fourth SONA. Join me from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we discuss relevant economic issues that the Philippines is facing and are waiting to be addressed by the President himself. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Have a great weekend ahead. Stay safe in the rain.